In this episode of the Dr. Clay Show, I'm going to answer a question about girls lifting weights because a lot of girls want to work out, but they don't want to get bigger. Well, I'm going to address just that topic for you ladies. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whichever one applies or whichever one you prefer, because it might be night and you prefer the salutation good morning. That's why I leave it up to you to choose the appropriate, your favorite salutation and insert it at the beginning of each and every episode. So with that being said, welcome to the January 10th episode of the Dr. Clay Show, which is now daily, by the way. That way you can move on with your life and quit worrying about the fact that there are simply not enough episodes of the Dr. Clay Show. And you're welcome. Now, the first topic of this episode of the Dr. Clay Show is the Alabama Crimson Tide. You know, I'm sighing as I'm saying it. That was very subconscious. I didn't mean to do that, and it was not nice. But the fact is, regarding the Alabama Crimson Tide winning their 15th football national championship, and in the South we say, Alabama won the national championship again. That just means football. Because in the South, the primary sport, basically the only sport in the South, team sport that anybody cares about is college football, not pro football. Who cares about the Falcons? Who cares about the Saints or the Titans or even the Carolina Panthers? Although I've got a little love for them because of Cam Newton. But I digress. The point is, in the South, Alabama football, Auburn football, college football in general is a huge deal. It is a huge deal. And Alabama won their 15th national championship the other day, making them the, not necessarily the winningest, the team that has won the most national championships in the history of college football. It's pretty impressive. Now, as an Auburn fan, you're not going to believe what I'm about to say, but I will admit that, I feel like I'm the Auburn firing squad is about to make a hit on me. But what I want to say is that I think it's undoubtedly at this point that the Alabama Crimson Tide is the best, historically, is the best college football team of all time. I hate to admit it, but it's true. My emotion is one of jealousy. And that is, I'm jealous of the Alabama Crimson Tide, it's a wrong emotion to have, but 50% of me is jealous for them, meaning I'm happy for them. I can kind of feel their joy. So, you Crimson Tide fans, congratulations. I'm very happy for you. More importantly, Crimson Tide football team, Nick Saban, man, you might not have the best, just most passive, peaceful demeanor, but you can coach some football. I give you that. So, mad props. All right. So, good job, Crimson Tide. But more importantly, at least if you're not in the South, those of you in Alabama are like, dude, there's nothing more important. Whatever you're about to talk about, it's not more important than college football. Anyway, but for everyone outside the state of Alabama, more importantly, I want to answer a female question. I was going to say a question from a female, and I was getting a little bit ahead. I want to answer a question from a female about girls lifting weights and worrying about getting too big. This question comes from April in Tennessee. Now, April, you should have hooked us up and told us what city you're from. Not that we're going to try to stalk you or come visit or anything like that, but just so that we can picture. We don't know whether we should picture Memphis, Nashville. Who knows? Maybe you live in Knoxville. I don't know. But nonetheless, April, I appreciate your questions. And April's question specifically is, I really want to start working out, but I don't want to lift weights because I don't want to get bigger. All right, so let's answer April's question, because the reality is females who want to improve their physique need to lift weights. That's just the reality of it. If you want to, firm up, so to speak, the word tone up is so misused. Let's not use that one. But if you want to lose body fat and have a firm-looking physique, then you're going to need to lift weights. But let me explain why you need not be worried about that. In fact, you need to be excited about lifting weights. Now, to begin with, April, let me go over first a couple of reasons why you will not, and I repeat, not get too big. You won't. I know that a lot of females, and you mean well, and I'm certainly not picking on you guys. I have nothing but love for the ladies. But you guys worry too often, and understandably, about getting too big because you see Female bodybuilders, for example, that, lift weights hard, obviously, and they end up looking like what you guys often call, say, looking like a man. Okay, I respect that. That's cool. I get it. However, you have to understand that, first of all, female bodybuilders that compete at the, elite pro level, oftentimes, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but oftentimes, and probably more times than not, use male hormones to help them look that big, specifically testosterone. So here's the key, April, and that is that women have very low levels of testosterone. And testosterone is one of the primary anabolic or muscle building hormones in the body. And that is why males, likewise, talking about competitive bodybuilders in the elite ranks, some males actually will take testosterone as well in order to help them grow more muscle. Because the fact is, it takes ample amounts of testosterone to build ample amounts of muscle. And the reality, April, is assuming you're not going to take testosterone or take steroids, so to speak, you're not going to be able to get too big because you don't have the hormonal support. You don't have the testosterone support. So if you're not going to take testosterone, don't worry about it. And next, you also have to keep in mind that you have to train hard. And I mean hard and for a long period of time to build any appreciable muscle mass. And by the way, even if you train hard, it's not going to happen because you don't have enough testosterone. But anyway, you have to train super, super hard. And I don't mean to be mean, but April, I'm going to say, and I think this is a safe guesstimate, that you're not going to train hard enough. Now, before you ladies get upset with me, say, oh, he thinks that women can't train hard. Absolutely not. That's not what I'm saying. My point is most people in general, not just women, but even most men don't train hard enough to build an appreciable, as in too much muscle. You have to train ridiculously hard and for years upon years. I have been trying, in fact, it's part of my job to help people build muscle. And I've spent, a large part of my adult life trying to build muscle. And April, I can tell you, I've searched high and low and I have experimented with all types of different training techniques, diet, supplements, and so on. And it is ridiculously hard to build a substantial amount of muscle mass. So if you do start lifting weights and you find that you get too big, please get in touch with me again and let me know how you did it. And I will pay you for that advice as well, because if you can shorten my learning curve and help me to be a better coach, then I'm down with it. But the reality is it is super hard to build muscle. It takes ridiculous amounts of hard training and years to do it as well. Now, likewise, the fact that I'm going to assume that you're probably going to be dieting to lose a little fat, you didn't say, but fact is, most people that are getting in shape are going to be dieting and kind of reducing their calories. It takes a lot of calories to build extra muscle. So the fact that you're dieting will prevent muscle gain largely. It will mitigate a lot of muscle gain. So long story short, you cannot get too big. And I say that very respectfully. You can't get too big. You don't have the hormonal support, and you would have to train super hard and for years. In other words, it's kind of like saying, I don't want to put money in my piggy bank because I'm afraid I'll get too rich and I'll have to pay all those taxes. Seriously, April, I'm not even exaggerating. It would be as easy to get too rich, whatever that is, to get too rich by putting money in a piggy bank as it would for the average female not taking hormones to just lift weights and get too big. And again, if you do get too big, it is so easy to lose muscle. And I'll even help you with that. If you start lifting weights and you find you get too big, tell you what, I'll coach you for free because it's real easy to lose muscle. So we can address that quickly. So now, April, let me explain why you do want to lift, because there are lots of benefits to lifting weights. And before I forget, let me underline do a bunch. There's a great book called, I should have looked this up beforehand. The authors are I believe it's both of the Cosgroves. a husband and wife team by the name of Alwyn, or Alan as I believe he goes by often. Alwyn and I believe, hope I'm spelling this right, but Rachel Cosgrove. They've written a book called, I think it's The New Rules for Lifting for Females, or something like that. New Rules of Lifting for Women, something like that. Get this book. It is a great read for you that will explain in far more detail than I can do here in one episode of the Dr. Clay Show. But check that out. But why you want to lift, first you need to maintain muscle mass. Maintain muscle mass. You do not want to lose muscle mass, April. I know you mentioned that you don't want to get bigger, but you have to keep in mind that it's not just muscle that makes you bigger, it's also fat. For example, let me draw you a little picture here. Let's say this is your muscle currently. This is your arm. And then around that is your fat. So this is fat here. And then this is your skin. All right. So what women think is they think, I don't want my arm to be, bigger than that. I understand. So, but what happens is that if you build out the muscle, if you build the muscle out like this, and simultaneously decrease your fat stores around it, you won't get bigger, but what you'll find is this, and I said people are wrongly or erroneously use the word tone. Well, this is, regardless of what you call it, whether it's right or wrong, this will result in a more toned looking appearance, gaining muscle but losing fat. So when it comes to improving the appearance of your physique, and I humbly say that is my expertise and that's what I'm good at, is helping people improve the appearance of their physique. Well, it takes more muscle and less fat to improve the appearance of your physique. So don't worry about gaining a little muscle, because as long as you're simultaneously losing fat, it's only going to help you look better. Here's another key. Muscle goes on in the right places. In other words, where you gain muscle, it's going to look good, whereas fat does not go on in the right place. So what happens when you're dieting, going back to this maintaining muscle mass, when you are dieting, there is a tendency for people to lose muscle. Well, resistance training is going to help preserve your muscle mass, and that is a huge plus. It's going to help maintain muscle mass. It also helps to improve insulin sensitivity. I'm running out of room here, but lifting helps to improve insulin sensitivity, and that makes it easier for you to get leaner and harder for you to gain fat. So you want better insulin sensitivity, but weight training is what accomplishes that. And by the way, weight training is also going to increase your metabolism. One, by helping you to maintain muscle mass, because when you lose muscle mass, your metabolism is going to decrease as well, because muscle is metabolically very expensive. So in other words, it costs a lot of calories to keep it alive. So you want a lot of muscle mass in terms of staying lean, because it is a lot easier to stay lean when you have a decent amount of muscle. And that muscle increases your metabolism. So you want to at least preserve muscle mass. And here's the thing. In order for you to get too big, you would have to lift a lot. It takes a lot of lifting. In other words, what we call a high volume. It takes a high volume of lifting to get really big. And it takes heavy lifting as well. So all you need to do in order to avoid getting too big is, here's your rules of thumb to not get too big. You simply need to not go all out. Do not go all out, because going all out and training to failure, so to speak, in other words, moving the weight until you can't move it anymore, that's what actually will tend to help build muscle better, because it's a stimulus for you to build muscle. So don't go all out and don't lift too heavy. You'd be surprised, though. You can still actually lift pretty heavy, and you'll actually just build firm, nice-looking muscle. Because you don't. The key overall, April, is that you don't want to neglect your muscle tissue, because if you do, you will end up with a skinny, fat appearance, and you don't want that. You don't want a body that is, although it's skinny, it still kind of looks flabby. You don't want that. So you want to don't go all out and don't lift too heavy and don't lift too much. So if you don't do that, if you don't do these things, then you're not going to get big. So don't worry about it. And also keep in mind when you say, I want to work out, but I don't want to lift weights because I don't want to get too big. Well, let's keep in mind, let's fine tune a couple of terms, and I'll leave you with this. You do want to resistance train. That means train your muscles against some resistance, and that is what helps to preserve your muscle mass so that you don't waste away and lose muscle, and that it keeps your metabolism elevated and so on. You want to resistance train. Well, that can be in the form of lifting weights, so to speak. And keep in mind, there is nothing magical about just weights, like they automatically make you get big. For example, if you're lifting a light dumbbell, did you know that's the same as like lifting a purse? If a dumbbell weighs 5 pounds and your purse weighs 5 pounds, you have just as much of a risk of getting too big lifting your purse as you do the weight. So don't let weights, just because they're called barbells or dumbbells, don't automatically assume that just because it's a barbell or dumbbell that it's going to make you huge. But you do need to do some resistance training to train your muscles. Now you can do that with weights, or you can do that with some sort of band, or you can do that with your body weight, like calisthenics, push-ups, and so on. You can do that with TRX straps, and the list goes on and on. There are machines, by the way, but you've got to keep in mind that as long as you don't train too intensely and too heavy and with too much volume and so on, you can do any of these. All of these are essentially the same. It's providing a resistance, an external resistance for your muscles to work against. So whether that comes in the form of body weight training, TRX straps, machines, bands, weights, it doesn't matter. But to get that lean, sculpted looking physique, you need to do some sort of resistance training, whichever type it is, a little bit for each body part. And that will enable you to get the benefits you want. And again, I assure you, you will not get too big. And do check out that book that I mentioned as well. And I hope this info helped you out a little bit in terms of enlightening you to the fact that it is ridiculously hard to build muscle and that there are a ridiculous number of benefits to resistance training. All right, my friends, that's going to do it for this episode of the Dr. Clay Show. Till next time, try to enjoy life. That's my advice.